The conference room was silent, except for the nervous rustling of papers in her trembling hands. Her heart pounded as if the walls themselves were listening to her fears. She had promised herself she wouldn't cry, not today, not when everything depended on this one meeting. But as her son tugged gently at the hem of her worn blazer and whispered that he was hungry, a lump rose in her throat, threatening to shatter the fragile mask of composure she had put on. She wasn't just here as a young professional desperate for a job, she was here as a mother, standing at the very edge of her breaking point. Friends had told her she was reckless, even foolish, to bring her son to such an important meeting. But what choice did she have? The babysitter had cancelled last minute, she couldn't afford daycare, and missing this opportunity would mean losing her only shot at stability. She knew most people in corporate boardrooms didn't welcome distractions, much less a restless little boy clutching a stuffed toy. Still, she walked in, holding her son's small hand tightly, praying silently that someone, just someone, would see her not as a burden, but as a human being. Sparkles, before I continue, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the strength of the human spirit, please take a moment to like this video, share it, leave a comment, and subscribe to Kindness. Your support helps us bring more true stories of compassion and hope to light. Sparkles. Her name was Maria. For the last 3 years, she had been struggling to hold her life together after her husband walked out, leaving her with nothing but debts and a 3-year-old child. She had once dreamed of building a career in marketing, but reality had pulled her away from offices and into night shifts, waiting tables and cleaning floors. Every paycheck was already spent before it came, every meal rationed to make sure her son, little Daniel, never went to bed hungry. She had learned to smile in front of him, to pretend everything was fine, even when she sat awake at night counting coins and wiping away tears. This one meeting, was her chance at a real job, a stable salary, a door back into the career she had abandoned. The company was known for its competitive spirit, and its CEO, Jonathan Reed, had a reputation for being one of the toughest in the industry. Maria had rehearsed her pitch countless times, every word memorized like scripture. But as she stood in that cold boardroom, Daniel squirming in his chair beside her, she felt all her preparation unravel. The room was filled with stern faces, men and women in crisp suits typing notes on sleek laptops. Her son's little toy dinosaur clattered onto the floor, the sound echoing louder than thunder in her ears. She braced herself for the disapproving sighs, the glares, the silent judgment she had grown used to. But something unexpected happened. At the far end of the table, Jonathan Reed, the CEO himself, looked up from his notes. Instead of frowning, he smiled. Not a fake corporate smile, not the kind that masks annoyance, but a warm, genuine smile that reached his eyes. He leaned back, folding his hands as if he had all the time in the world. "Is this your son?" he asked casually, but with a softness that filled the room. Maria hesitated, nodding quickly, ashamed and apologetic. She muttered that she couldn't find childcare and hoped it wouldn't be a problem. She was ready for rejection, ready to hear the words, "This is unprofessional," or "We'll reschedule." But Jonathan simply said, "Then let's make it a family affair." The tension broke instantly. A few chuckles rippled around the table. Daniel, oblivious to the weight of the moment, grinned and waved his toy dinosaur proudly. Instead of rolling their eyes, the executives smiled back. Jonathan motioned for the boy to sit closer, even offering him a cookie from a plate at the table. Maria blinked in disbelief, her throat tightening again, but this time for a very different reason. She launched into her presentation, her voice shaky at first, then steadier as she saw the nods of encouragement around her. Each time she faltered, Daniel squeezed her hand, whispering, "You can do it, Mama." Her son's innocent words felt like an anchor, grounding her, reminding her why she was here. She spoke with passion, not just about marketing strategies, but about resilience, about seeing people as more than numbers, about building campaigns that connected with the human heart. And when she finished, silence filled the room again, but it was a silence of consideration, not judgment. Jonathan Reed leaned forward, his smile still warm, and said, "Maria, you don't just understand business. You understand people. That's what makes a leader. For the first time in years, she felt seen, not just as a struggling mother, not just as a woman surviving day to day, but as someone with value, with potential. But her journey wasn't over yet. The company didn't hire her instantly. There were still interviews, tests, and long nights of waiting by the phone. Maria fought through every doubt, every voice in her head telling her she wasn't good enough. She remembered the way Jonathan had looked at her, not with pity, but with respect, and that memory kept her moving forward. Weeks later, when she finally got the call offering her the position, she collapsed onto the floor, holding Daniel close, both of them laughing and crying at once. Life slowly began to change. The paychecks covered rent without fear, her fridge was full more often than empty, and she no longer had to count coins under dim kitchen lights. But the biggest change was not material, it was the restoration of her dignity. She walked into work every day not as a charity case, but as an equal, as someone trusted and needed. Her colleagues admired her strength, but they didn't know the nights she had spent crying in secret, or the mornings when she had walked Daniel to school with shoes that pinched because she couldn't afford new ones. They didn't know how many times she had thought of giving up, until one kind smile changed everything. Jonathan Reed never treated her differently because of her struggles. He invited her ideas into conversations, asked her to lead projects, and even encouraged her to bring Daniel to company family days, where the boy quickly became everyone's little mascot. Slowly, Maria realized that kindness in leadership wasn't weakness, it was the greatest strength. The story of that one meeting began to spread within the company, whispered as an example of what true humanity in business looked like. Employees who once feared the strict hierarchy started to relax, to connect, to help one another more openly. A culture of compassion began to grow, sparked by one smile, one decision to see a struggling woman not as a disruption, but as a person worthy of a chance. Years later, Maria stood at another boardroom table, not as a nervous applicant, but as a department head, leading her own team. Daniel, now older, sometimes visited the office after school, and every time he walked in, Jonathan Reed still greeted him with that same warm smile. Maria never forgot the weight of that kindness. She carried it with her, determined to pass it forward, to be the kind of leader who saw the person before the resume, the story before the statistics. Because in the end, it wasn't just a job she gained that day, it was hope. And hope, once restored, has a way of multiplying, spilling into every corner of life. Sparkles, if this story touched your heart, please don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe to Kindness. Your engagement helps us continue sharing stories that remind the world of the power of compassion. Together, we can spread kindness further than we imagine. Sparkles. And before we end, here's a special request. Cherry Blossom, please comment below with the words, "Kindness is power," if you believe even a simple smile can change someone's life. Cherry Blossom. Maria's story reminds us all that sometimes the greatest battles are fought silently, and the greatest victories come not from wealth or status, but from compassion, resilience, and the courage to keep going, hand in hand with those we love.